What's up, everyone? Welcome to Other Space FM. Today, we're breaking down the camp. We're going to break down each other's camp. Jason the Ape is here. I am here.
I am here too. What's up, everybody?
we just so happen to be rocking the same ape
That's so
today,
funny.
which is not our ape. This is
No,
Bored and
bored and
Hungry.
hungry.
Let's go. Shout
This
out
does
Bored
look
and
like our
Hungry.
shirt, though, for me, right? If I could light it up a little bit better.
Yeah, here we
That's
go.
funny. That's really funny. No, I love Bored and Hungry. Every time I'm in LA, I try to hit it up. I've seen they've opened some spots in the Philippines. I love seeing them grow. You got that actually at the Miami event, like at Art Basel, Miami. I
Yeah,
didn't grab that. I got this at the Long Beach location. I wish I would have got that one.
yeah.
But
And you know what? Besides Jason the Ape being here and me, we got the community pulling up. Want to say what's up to everyone that's here. Coffee Attack, Raiden, Law the Saw, William, Hooper. What's good, everyone? Nice to be able to chop it up with the community. I think just being able to go through each other's Legends of the Mara camp, maybe get an idea of what are you working with,
yeah,
what is your current strategy, and any sort of community feedback that you all have. What up, Kid A in the house? If you all have feedback, you have questions, we encourage you to throw it in the chat. We'll do our
yeah,
best to just really keep the conversation going. I think one of the things like we can really try and do right now is first assess what do we got access to, and then as we begin to develop our strategies, I'm sure some of that strategy may go toward using what you got. Some might be moving stuff out of your particular camp and maybe switching it up for some other assets, and also want to kind of understand like what are you looking into,
right.
at the risk of ourselves being front ran, but at the same time, like having a lot of these discussions could be really helpful
Yeah,
for other
absolutely,
people, and that's what we're
absolutely.
about.
I think it's going to be something cool that we'll do in the future too. That will break down other people's camps together and really, sit down with the community. And if you guys have any questions or you're not sure, that could be something fun we can look into together in the future. But to
Yeah, we
kick it
can break down
off,
some camps.
yeah, dude, to kick it off, let me go ahead and pull up my screen, and we'll start by looking at my camp, and then we'll jump over to Sean's camp because I've got a lot of questions and not sure what's going on. But first things first, let lotm.otherside.xyz/camp. That is how you get to the camp right there.
Yeah,
It took
and
it took me a
even
minute to figure out.
even this website real quick has just we kind of switched things up, because now if you want to access the other side website, your original one, you click on that and it gives you all the menu items for that.
Yeah,
Going to clicking on LOTM, expanded. If you're wondering where to claim your vessels, or if you recently purchased an other deed that hasn't been expanded and you still have a vessel to claim, this is where you claim your vessels, is under
right.
expanded. Game guide, we'll probably do a separate video where we break down the game guide even in more detail and just kind of have our own commentary and takes on it. Today we're going to break down the camp. And Jay, why don't we just start off before we get into like what you're thinking about and your strategy as you open up the camp? Um, why don't we just start off with the actual inventory of it? Like, how many deeds do you
Yeah.
have? What are the different sediments that you're working with? How many vessels or workers do you have? And then we can start to talk about why you place them where.
All right. So the base of my camp is the deeds, and currently I have 12 deeds. I like looking at it by sorted by. I can look at it by environment tiers or sediment tiers. So get into that later. But I've got 12 different deeds: infinite expanse, rainbow atmos, chemical goo, a few biogenic swamps. I do not have any cosmic dreams. So that'll play into a thought I have, later on.
Yeah, your
I've got
strategy.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of creatures, I've got the 3 Kodos that I've deemed the hypno trips. These are, my guys that I've had for a while.
Yeah.
Revealed 2 farmers. Both of them were not common, so love seeing that. I think we got 1 uncommon, 1 epic here. And then we got
Nice.
2 enchanters, 1 common, 1 uncommon. And then we have 4 vessels cooking. These I had thought about paying for the
How
day of
many
Ape
of it?
coin, but I was like, why am I gonna? I don't. The hunter. I don't really want. Not that I don't want it, but it's. I don't have a need to rush this. The farmers. I've been thinking about paying up to get going because of the depleting global fragment supply. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with the inventory of what I have.
I love it.
Um,
I love it. That's
let's
that's a
stop there
nice
for a
little
second.
breakdown. And just kind of looking, one thing that is really great to know as I'm looking at people's camps and as I'm looking at yours, the thing that stands out to me is exactly what you sorted by is that sediment tier. So those little dots at the very bottom of each deed, that all of a sudden has way more value. I mean, hey, if I could rewind the the moment of time when we said, "Hey, are you ready for Legends of the Mar? Are you prepared?" We've kind of put out many different spaces. If I could roll back some time, man, I wish I would have just focused a little bit more on sediment tier 3 deeds. You know what I mean? Because I don't have enough of them.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't have enough of the right ones. Like I have 2 biogenic swamps, one that is part of the one from Jason the Ape. It's my minted deed. Never got rid of that one, but it's a 1 tier. I bought this acid land 1 tier biogenic swamp. Really, just to have 3 acid lands to build character and IP on. But in terms of playing this game, it has a pretty minimum yield of 7 fragments every 24 hours
That's what I'm
with a
saying.
farmer, right? And something interesting, guys, to share. I've realized this because of experimentation. Uh, and I think Sean, you actually pointed this out. Like if I trade these, epic farmer and uncommon farmer, there's no value difference. They equate the same in terms of like how much it harvests in a 24-hour period. So that was just an interesting observation.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's nice to somehow switch those up because they definitely do matter when you start to compound multiple workers on the same deed, right?
Right,
Because
right.
there ends up being a threshold, and when it gets over a certain amount, like for enchanters, as soon as it gets over a certain amount of the enchanter speed up, it will log in that extra fragment per hour or whatever it might be. So
Right.
I think that's where sometimes having an epic on one and just moving it to its own deed, sometimes that could actually be more beneficial than, deciding to put them all on the same deed. So I think that's kind of where we can go a little bit deeper into the strategy and,
Well, yeah,
break
and,
that
and
down.
yeah, absolutely. And so like we'll talk about real quick, like why did I choose to separate these 2 farmers onto 2 different deeds versus putting 2 on this and filling it, right? So
Yeah.
early on, I would have. Realistically, I thought the goal was to just fill one up and put everything on it and maximize it, right? But through a raving ape and some other people that I saw post, there's actually only a minimum bump you get for putting 2 here versus separating them. And the reality that occurred to me is not a lot of people will have multiple biogenic swamps, right? Or multiple of any deed that for that matter, right? So this is going to be the most common play is having a deed and filling it. But if you can take one and split it versus it being 9, what was it, 9 for every 18 hours or something like that, barely goes up. Now I have 7 and 7 every 24 hours. So now I'm getting 14 and my
14 day with
yield,
farmers.
yeah,
Yeah.
14 biogenic
Mhm.
fragments every 24 hours, which gives me a better daily yield. So I think what I'll do now, Sean, if it's cool, is I want to tell you what I have going on, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'll tell you where I have kind of some plans going forward, and then after that, give me the breakdown of the
Perfect.
camp, and then we'll jump over to your camp and see what you're
Yeah,
doing.
that sounds good. I think before we jump into that, I think it'd be worth prefacing that at the time of this live stream, the Shattered and the hunting the Shattered is currently not like accessible right now. For context, and just to reiterate, just because you're assigning hunters doesn't, and the Shattered hunt game is not open, it's still passively attacking the Shattered. You just don't get to see the leaderboard stats, what your progress is, or even if you even defeated a Shattered already. And so
Right.
there's a lot of things that, because this part of the game isn't open, we can't really talk about, like, we can only talk so much about what it's like to manage your strategy, even though it's still worth it. And that could even lend it into its own meta in terms of, yo, there might be some really great opportunities to focus on attacking and things like that while this is down. So, that being said, I wanted to kind of draw the landscape to that, and we can continue to discuss your strategy, why you did things the way you did. But that is, like, for anyone that may even watch the playback of this video, that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think now with that said, I want to kind of share with you why I have my lands built out the way that I do. So nesting here, they're just nested anywhere. Like from what I've heard, doesn't matter if you nested on a biogenic versus a chemical goo. That doesn't affect the rarity of the nesting or the reveal. It seems to be just random, right? So
Yeah, even 4K3 said, what dictates the rarity of a hatched vessel? Is it predetermined, or is it determined by which deed that hatches it?
yeah, exactly. And that was a question, like, I thought
It's
at first,
random.
would it be better if I put it on a biogenic? Not necessarily, completely random.
Yeah. Or like,
Um,
does it matter if the deed numbers match with the vessel? Is that going to yield me a more rare Mara if I decide to hatch it and they match? Like, no, not to what we've seen.
yeah,
You just basically, having a deed is just a place you can start to nest that vessel.
right, exactly. And then so once they reveal, there's different rarities, and you go from common all the way to legendary. They have different metrics in terms of what they achieve versus hunting, farming. So I've got three farmers cooking, one hunter cooking, and I don't want to pay the ape coin to speed it up because it's like anywhere from 30 to $50 per. I have done a few of them so far, and I'm thinking like,
42 ape coin or something.
yeah, and every time you wait, it gets a little bit less, So I'll probably do one more at a time as I get more impatient. And the reason I'd want to even consider doing that is the fragment ratio of depletion and how quick it's going, right? So besides that, I've got these two farmers farming biogenic swamp, so I'm getting 14 a day. But this is the part that's killing me right now is I have three codas hunting with two enchanters maximizing their hunt. I've had them there. I explained this to you earlier. Day one, I was farming with them. Day two, I went into hunt. Day three, I panicked and went back into farming. And then day four, I decided, you know what? I don't think enough people are hunting, so I'm gonna go for hunting. And I've left them there the last 3 days. And so I wanted to bring this up because we did a tweet the other day on Other Space, and we asked what the strategy was, how many people were hunting versus farming. Most people chose farming, 63 to 37%. So that tells me that theory might actually be somewhat correct in that not many people are hunting because of what you said, Sean. Most people thought it wasn't working. But as long as it's toggled on right here, it's passively accumulating points. We just have no progress bar.
So
We
what's your
we
DPS? What's your damage per second on that deed, for instance?
511 DPS with the plus 21 damage because of having the two enchanters doubling up.
That's awesome. And we now know based off of the environment tier, we now know the different uh, health points or hit points, or whatever we call them. But essentially the life for each one of the shattered in each environment tier. And that was confirmed. We have it posted in our Discord under the LOTM Alpha channel. And it's also that data is also worked into the LOTM calculator that other guild has.
Nice.
So I think those are some really. I'll end up pulling that up just shortly, but
Well,
I
that was
think
part
those
of
are.
I did use that tool to decide part of this build out, and based on that tool, it speculated that I would defeat a shattered every 4 days with this 511 DPS.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the thing is like it's great to know that it's 4 days, and I'm just going to voice like something that's a little frustrating with the Shattered Hunt game being down is it's going to take 4 days, but like at what point will it actually be defeated where you collect that master chest, hopefully,
right,
or that shattered loot, because there's a cooldown period of when the next shattered will be able to come up. And that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, that cooldown period of 48 hours or whatever it might be, that could be a great opportunity window for you to make changes to your assets in the camp, just in
right.
case you need to switch something up and be like, oh, you know what? While we're waiting on that, why don't I take two of my quotas and dedicate it toward farming while it's still this deed is still hunting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm frustrated with right now myself because I have these 3 codas and these 2 enchanters that I feel like could be yielding a good amount if I was moving them around to farm, right? Pl including the farmers that I have. But my numbers are quite low here because they've been sitting in the hunt for 3 or 4 days now, and I don't know if I've achieved a box, how much longer I have to go. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And while I'm hoping that this is a smart play, I have no way of knowing, right? And so this is to the point earlier that you made is there's only so much you could break down with the camp because this won't be known if it's a good idea or a bad idea until they show us a progress bar or until the hunt, works again, right? And so I don't think we're 7 days into the game yet. I think we're what, like 5 days, 6 days?
Yeah.
Um,
And
somewhere
real
around
quick,
there.
what number is that? 72914.
Yep.
I'm just going to see on X2Y2 to see if the metadata has been updated for it, because we started to see Goliath kills in the actual metadata that was updated. And
Oh,
I don't know if, yeah, this one didn't on X2Y2, it didn't necessarily showcase it, but started to see it on Looks Rare as well, but I don't see it here.
interesting. So,
But
and that's
that
something
would be,
interesting. So it would appear as if a metadata update to the deed.
yes, and that's kind of where it gets
Interesting. I
really
didn't know that.
interesting, because your leaderboard, even though it shows, so actually have a screenshot of the leaderboard. Let me see if I can find that and pull it up.
Cool.
And I think it's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I want to say in the meantime, while you're pulling that up, guys, do us a favor. If you're watching it on Twitter, retweet the video. If you're on YouTube, give it a like, and just let other people know that you're hanging out and vibing because this is actually quite informative to break down camp together. And there's a lot of strategy to this game. I had no idea about this part. And this is something that I really hope, for as much as many of us put into the financial part of this game, I I love what it is, but I really hope that the progress bar of fighting ability pops up soon because it is very irritating.
Yeah, I know, man. All right, so check this out. This is a screenshot that I took when Dino Pawns had it up. Was able to just go into the leaderboard real quick. But what you can see here is it has rank as the first column and then wallet, right? So it shows which wallet, but the fact that other deed number is placed there,
Mm,
that really tells me that whatever progress you have on that deed, it's going to be associated with the deed. And so that could really lend itself to why the metadata is being updated for that particular deed, is because you're basing a lot of the progress and the rewards similar to heavy metal amps, right? Where you're competing for a seasonal leaderboard. In this particular case, the amount of shattered killed could very well be the metadata that gets updated to that actual deed. The next column that goes over is the total time. So it does, if everyone completed and killed one shattered, well, how is it going to rank in the leaderboard if everyone has one? It's going to go based off of how quickly did you kill that shattered or that amount of shattered. So the total time of which it took you to uh, kill all of those shattered will definitely come into play on the leaderboard. So the quicker you do it, the better. And then it shows the current shattered progress. After it defeats the shattered here, there's like a 48-hour cooldown period where you won't be able to defeat another shattered until that cooldown period, and then that next shattered appears, unless you defeat, or unless you pay, some ape coin and get some mist, and speed that cooldown period process up. So some people were able to do that when this came back up, and were able to defeat their shattered, and quickly get it sped up to already get on that next shattered and have a 2-day advantage, of being able to speed it up,
Here,
and not have
here,
to wait.
here's something interesting that I'm just noticing because I've seen this graphic before, but I never noticed the top part that this person has clicked on tier two, right? And there's the five
Yeah.
different tiers that you're competing in. So, like, we'll go back to my screen right now. I'm competing in a tier three,
Hmm.
so like I'm gonna use this as a frame of reference. This says every how many days? 1 day, 14 hours or something. It seems like the higher up it goes in tier, the longer the amount of time it is that you have to defeat the shattered. But because I put it in, took it out for a day, put it back in for a few days, I don't know if it stopped or if it just continually added that 1 day plus these new 3 days, so I'm already at 4 days, or if it just started new. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a little hard. And I think that goes into your strategy right now. It's
Yeah,
like, for
it's high
one,
risk.
for the hunting strategy, you have to be paying attention to these updates. Like, as soon as it comes back online, you may want to just check. You might want to
Immediately.
see and already begin to understand the leaderboard, right? So those are some of the things that I think are going to be really helpful, is like, once it does come back online, are you just completely figuring everything out from scratch, or do you have a good sense of like, okay, how am I going, what progress am I with defeating my first shattered? I should be expecting a cooldown period after it defeats that shattered. And yeah, I think that plays into the strat. What did Raiden say?
Time continuous once it starts, no matter if you remove all your Mara coda. And I did think that's what the case was, that it was gonna
Wow.
be like it's like you take it out, you put it to farm, whatever. That time doesn't go anywhere. It just continues to add on because this is essentially a staking game, right? Like this is what more or less we're doing, is staking these things for either fighting or hunting. Um, well, okay, so that leaves me in a place of vulnerability because I don't know if this is a good idea or not. But the reason I've justified this is that
Sorry.
if this does give me a competitive advantage, I still have three farmers cooking, uh, and one hunter vessel, which I'll put that by itself on something like probably on this one. And then I want to take the farmers and put it on like the tier 2 chemical goo. I'll put a farmer there, let him start getting his stuff in. Then the question becomes, do I put them on a Rainbow Atmos Infinite Expanse tier 3 because that'll give me a good yield, right? Or do I go to a chemical goo 1 and do that? And because I have 3 farmers, I'll probably put one here, and then one here. Until I can figure out what to do with these. And then once this is over, we'll have to do another camp breakdown because I have no idea what to do past this point.
No, man.
Like realistically, yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, it seems that each of our strategy has changed almost like every day, or so we're constantly seeing what others are doing. We're seeing, how productive things can be, and also new assets do come into play. If Amara hatches or a vessel hatches, excuse me, and it turns into Amara, all of a sudden you might be like, oh, you know what? Now I can actually outfit, these 2 hunters on this tier 2 or whatever it might be. So,
well, my
I don't
strategy
blame you.
changed completely the other day when one of our awesome community members and a friend of mine gifted me, not donated, gifted me 3 deeds, 2 of these,
Yo,
and then
which
this
one?
one over
Yeah,
here,
which one's that?
8132. And then these 2 tier 5s, 1 tier 5 mycelium and 1 tier 5 crystal chemical goo,
Amazing.
and a few vessels, right? And so that expanded like, oh, what can I do? Then I got a little excited and I sold off some NFTs that were just like a few bucks here, and I bought another farmer. So now I feel comfortable. Now the problem I have is something I asked you is, do I consolidate and like get a dip because I don't have any cosmic dreams, and I'm like, maybe I should get one of those. There's some on the floor, you know. Here, when I talk
Yeah.
about front running
Oh,
earlier, I saw a I saw an acid land cosmic dream on the floor, and so I thought maybe I'll floor this one and buy that one, but that's only for this part of the game, right? We haven't talked about the future part of the game where we get to harvest our sediment, our resources, not our
the
sediment fragments,
resources. Yeah.
right? So there's certain reasons to still hang on to the deeds besides just this component. So now
Yeah.
that you've heard it all, what do you think I should do, and what would be advice that maybe people could learn from based on these?
I'm glad to see that you at least have some Maras hatched out of all of them. So I think it's cool that you didn't just sell everything and just sped up all your vessels. Like, obviously, that's going to be really, really helpful to do if you want to have that kind of head start and advantage. But you work with what you can, and I love to see that you have some items that you can actually get involved with, like straight up. There's so many people that all they can do right now is just nest their vessel, and we got people like, I think we're almost at a week, right? Like their vessels should begin to start hatching this week. And so a lot of people are waiting to, assign their Mara as a worker. So that being said, the 2 enchanters with your 3 codas fighting, that's really interesting. At this point, I wouldn't move it because I'm afraid to move these assets to, like, for instance, a tier 2 where you can have the 2 codas hunting on a tier 2 deed and then throw that extra coda as an enchanter at the bottom to help maximize the leaderboard stats on a tier 2 environment and leaderboard. So I think that would be really interesting if you ever have an opportunity to move it. That
Yeah,
could be
that's an
something
interesting idea.
to play with, because you're competing on an environment tier 3 for hunting shattered with 3 codas, one of them of which have a weapon, and you have 511 damage DPS. if you were to put that, like for instance, if you use the calculator and let's put that on, let's say a sediment tier 2 or environment tier 2, and we put a weapon coda and a regular coda. Let me share my screen real quick. I'm using the other guild's LOTM calculator, lotm.otherguild.xyz. If I do that, and then which enchanters do you have? You got a
Common and
common and
uncommon.
uncommon. Okay, and then we'll put your coda down there. Let's just see what that might play out as. So for you have a weapon coda and a coda as your hunters on I guess it doesn't matter what sediment because you're not farming it. On an environment tier 2, let's add your enchanters. So you got enchanter common, uncommon, and let's put a coda down there. So the total DPS for this would be 397.
So here's something that I did
Not
learn because I
yeah,
tinkered a lot with this, right?
okay.
Like where I have it right now is at 511, and this build
Yeah,
puts
that's
you at three.
actually
So I'm quite a bit ahead of that with this third. And
you are.
what I've learned is that codas don't do well as enchanters to hunters.
Yeah.
So like
For
uh,
farming it does, yeah.
for farming it does, but codas are more powerful hunters. So that's their best role, essentially, is what I found.
I like
If
Dirk's
you
suggestion.
like sell a deed and add a common enchanter. And that's
Because
something I'd thought of, I have
you
a
got
few other.
some deeds that aren't put to work, right?
Yeah, I do. But, let's walk through the deeds that I have not working. This one right here is a Coda fart jar. I don't really want to sell that one. This one corresponds to a mutant I own. This is
What
my
do you
tier
mean
4.
corresponds just the number?
Yeah, exactly. Uh,
What do you mean by that? I'm
the,
sorry.
for the
Like
mutant that I like to keep all the
you
deeds for the egg.
claimed it
Yes,
with
this was
that.
claimed by a mutant that I own.
Do you think that's going to have any effect though?
I just like keeping them together.
Okay. Well,
So,
I don't think that it's necessarily going to matter considering the serial number.
well, for this also, it's
That.
a tier 2, sediment tier 2 chemical goo. So I plan on putting one farmer there. I feel like that one's okay.
Okay.
This one is a Coda axe, so I don't really want to get rid of that. This one is a 5-tier mecha piece. So that's a really rare, piece. I think there's only 100 of those. This is an acid land that I also have. These two were gifted to me recently, so I can't sell them. This one is mine from my Bored Ape. So I was actually playing with the idea of selling this acid land deed right here, but only for a different acid land because there's a Cosmic Dream one that I wanted. So what I'm actually
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to do is sell some other NFTs that I have to kind of get, different pieces. I like all the deeds I have, so I'm kind of in this, situation where I'm like, damn, I don't really want to get rid, or I don't feel like I can get rid of anything.
I think you definitely could, but you have your own reasons on why, and also, the meta is going to continue to evolve and change. So, it's kind of nice if you're like, oh, but I have, like, for instance, when we take a look at my deeds, there are some that I have some rare resources. Is that going to fit into Legends of the Mara right now? Like, not really. When I look at face value, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'd happily switch this over. But hey, when resources do come into play, this is kind of nice. But like, what's that? Is it important for me to get more production out of these deeds right now? Or stick with it right now, and then eventually when the meta changes, so will the prices for some of these deeds, with resources and artifacts, etc.
Well, like this one has a Tavo, right? And I think those will be a catalyst in the future. So I'm like, oh, I should really hold on to that one as well.
Well, you made a really good point about keeping the if you're hunting, like keeping those three at the top and not moving your coda down because the base value for hunting the shattered with those codas are really high. And I think that's really really awesome, because that's why I was thinking. I was like, oh well, you can probably fulfill your enchanters, but I think figuring out a way to get that extra common enchanter even
Yeah.
will definitely be like a nice move.
I do think that's probably the next play I have in my mind is getting one more enchanter.
Yeah.
They're around 0.45 ish, like closer to 0.5 when I saw most recently. Um, but yeah, that's a tough call. I had thought about selling this Coda axe for trying to sell it for like, 2, 3 ether, hopefully. And then just getting a bunch of vessels, and then that would make me feel like I could maximize some things here. But I think that was a great breakdown of the camp, Sean. I appreciate it. Let's go over and take a peek at yours and see what you're cooking up.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And thank
You
you
know,
everyone for tuning in and hanging out. This has been dope.
I know, man. Just to kind of just revisit a few comments, I love what Anthony's saying. It is very much like chess or poker, like lots of strategy. And the fact that we're competing with global leaderboards,
Yeah,
it depends on what others are doing that could change your strategy into this. I think that's really, really awesome. Dirk has been going in on the comments, you know, just offering some really great advice. Love to see Dirk up in here. Let's see. Anyhow, I think there is a lot of things that I'm considering at this moment. This is what I'm working with, and currently we have one of the deeds that in order for us to claim our vessel, um, we set up warm wallet for I have warm wallet set up for other space.eth account. So that's something we have to take into consideration right now, that this really doesn't even count in my inventory. It's just currently there. And we have a vessel that is nesting, and you can see the little white line across that. It's almost baked. So we got to figure out like what to do with this 1 day and 1 hour until we get to hatch our other space hunter.
nice.
So excited for that. But one of the reasons why we can do like a separate kind of discussion video where we go deeper into this and maybe get the community's input. But we got to figure out how to, maximize our productivity with this particular deed, because our intention for purchasing this other space deed, it's a tier 5 sky deed, and we've gotten the opportunity to be in the center island, which was equivalent to a tier 5 environment, which was 2.4 square kilometers large. It was a huge deed, and that was the intention for getting this deed for other space. Was we want a huge deed for the community to potentially be able to build on, right? And so with that intention, we purchased this deed. But in Legends of the Mara, it doesn't necessarily tailor itself to the best productivity to hunt one hunter on a tier 5. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of where it's like, shoot, we need to go to the war table and maybe figure out what a good strategy is. So just know that that is not part of my current inventory.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Um,
I mean, there may be an opportunity in the future, maybe where we partner with some community members. We all throw, a vessel in, and we accomplish something together and share it, or however figure that out. But good to be aware that that doesn't exist as far as we know it in your camp.
yeah,
I see that Dirk said, "Oh, interesting. I can't wait to understand why you have your coda in the enchanter slot. That must be specifically because you wanted to fight on a tier 3 land and use the hunter versus bench him." And I was wondering the same thing because you have 3 farmers and so this is going to be a great opportunity to get to that in a moment. But first, Sean, like what we did for when I started off, let's go ahead and have you kind of walk us through just what you have in in your
Yeah.
camp.
All right. Happy to. So, first off, I'll start with biogenic swamp. This is my only biogenic swamp. It just so happens to be the deed that I was able to claim with my ape. So we have matching, 2338 IDs. And so are we okay, cool. And that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, you know what? I need to make sure I at least do something with this, not because it's 2338, but because it's my only biogenic swamp. So I have an advantage of having exposure to a bioswamp. Next up, chemical goo. I got 2 deeds here. My intention for this deed up here with the Veldin, the tier 5 Veldin, that was when I ended up getting that one, that was really to build on it. So I was like really excited for, similar to the Sky deed. It was like when I was hunting for a deed, I was like, oh man, a tier 5 Veldin would be great. But it's sediment tier 1 chemical goo. This one right here, I minted from one of my mutants. It's a chemical goo, but it has some like an anema type resource on it. So the floor is the current offer is a little bit higher than the floor right now. But at the same time, it's like it's hard to move a couple of these. I can either sell, like I don't need 2 of these chemical goos, especially tier 1 sediment. I'd rather kind of figure out like which one do I want exposure to. And having competing in a tier 5 for hunting shattered, you know what? It's really tough. Any tier 5s to me don't look as attractive because I simply don't have enough workers. So that's what I'm working with there. Rainbow Atmos. Again, this is the one that other space has. So it really comes down to this one. I have this tier 3 sediment rainbow atmos, environment tier 2, and then cosmic dream. I got a couple of sediment tier 2 cosmic dreams. They currently have 2 hunters on them. And yeah, those are the couple. This one though has a rare resource, Gloomia. And so I'm hanging on to that one. This also has like some resources on it, but I may consider getting rid of that. I think it does have like some resources, but it's hard to sell resources right now. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
it above the floor, it's not as liquid. So the fact that they're both tier 1s and I had a couple of hunters, I just threw it on there, seeing what I can do. I'm still open to change my strategy. And then this is something I recently got right above the floor, which was an infinite expanse. I didn't have an infinite expanse before. And when I saw an environment or a sediment tier 3 infinite expanse, I was like, oh, that's the only sediment type I don't have exposure to. And then because it was a tier 4, that was the only environment tier that I didn't have exposure to either. And so that was kind of nice because I was like, now I can expose myself to infinite expanse sediment. And then for hunting, I can also expose myself to a tier 4 leaderboard. And so that's how I have my deeds kind of set up right now is I have exposure to all the different sediment types and exposure to each one of the leaderboards. But with the actual So I don't have any vessels because this vessel is other space. With my actual workers, or creatures, I got my coda. I got 3 hunters. One of them is, I think he's epic. And then 3 farmers and 2 enchanters.
Nice.
So that's what I'm working
Here's
with
my
right now.
first question.
Yeah.
Did you buy the mist to go ahead and push all of your vessels forward quicker? And if so,
Yeah.
why?
Oh yeah, I absolutely did. And I think my first thing, and this will get into why I did what I did with the how do we get out of this? Other deeds. Okay. So yes, I wanted to hatch it so I can already get started on farming, to be honest. And this is where, when I started doing this, because it was my only biogenic swamp, um, this is where I wanted to try and farm on this bio swamp. And one of the reasons for that, if I just go over to Otherside Wiki and go over to analytics, LOTM fragments right up here. Fragments has a total supply, it's a global supply. And if you look at the biogenic swamp fragments, the total amount available is 760,000 fragments total. And already we're starting to see that almost 100,000 have been farmed. If we stay at this rate, which the rate is increasing, we're looking at for the global supply of biogenic swamp sediment fragments to last only 28 more days. And
So,
this number's going down.
yeah, on Friday, I have a snapshot of this exact same screen, and it was
Here it
estimated
is.
on
I just
Friday. Yeah, there was 46.66 days available left, right? And so now we're at 27 days. So what's happening is more people are not only it's compounding, right? More people are either adding vessels to their deeds, or their nesting is over, or they've sped it up and they put it to work.
exactly. Wait till the farmers start to hatch,
Yeah, on
right?
like 7 days in, you're gonna see that number change
And
dramatically.
we'll see it change for all of these because not everyone has access to biogenic swamp. And
Right, right.
so that's one of the reasons why I decided to start farming here.
Okay.
Now, that's why I put, at the time, I put my 2 farmers here. Um, and I put a hunter here because I didn't even have an additional farmer at the time. Now, when I put my coda up at the top,
Mhm,
I actually got better rates and productivity
mhm.
when I put my coda as an enchanter to help buff the speed of production to get this number down, the
Now,
11.
hear me out with, and this is probably the curiosity most people are gonna have, is you have 3 farmers. Why don't you have 3 farmers there?
Well, the other thing I did was because like I said, I didn't have 3 farmers before, and I don't know the status of defeating that shattered. You
So you don't
know,
know how long, you've been hunting.
Exactly. And I was already 3 4 days into it when I got the other farmer.
Now
So
now
I
with that
could
though,
take it down, but then I'm like, shit, I'm losing all the productivity of defeating that
but
shattered in the
but think
first
about it
10
this
days.
way also, is you're fighting 1 hunter on a tier 3 deed, which means you're competing against people like me who have 3 codas on there.
Yeah.
So
So I'm
then
not going to get top of the leaderboard.
right, and so then my question becomes, how do we know how the loot boxes are, tiered? Like, the quicker you do it, the better you get. So you'll get something, you think, if you keep it hunting there, but I guess my thought is, if you're only putting 1 on a tier 3, why wouldn't you move it to a tier 1 or tier 2, even though you don't know how long it's worked for, because competitively you may not actually like that. Maybe that one hunter won't accomplish enough DPS to actually accomplish defeating a shattered in that time period, but we
So
don't know.
so here's the thing. I already have a hunter on some of these tier ones.
Got you.
I may sell this one.
Hmm.
And so I didn't want to like put it on there and then sell it and then lose productivity there.
Yeah, understood.
And this one right here is a tier 3 sediment. I want to eventually like farm on this one. So I was hoping to pick up some farmers so I can get that. But I could definitely move it over here. But again, it goes towards like I want to move this, but it's more of a matter of like where am I at
Right.
in defeating my first shattered, because I put this on like day one, because
So
at first I set up myself to start hunting. But I think it's just a matter of like, yo, let me see where I'm at because I want the flexibility to be able to switch it up.
very interesting. Just a side note is if you see the DPS for the single hunters, it's 40. You have a DPS of 82, I think it says,
Yeah.
with this here, because you have three enchanters essentially getting it, and you have a common, an uncommon, and then you have your coda. The codas, really do add a lot to this. And I understand why you have the coda here versus up there, because then you would only have three enchanters, right? So this maximizes your enchanting. You have a great ratio of farming. I am curious at what
I'm
point you
scared
decide
to
to move a
move
third
this
farmer.
hunter,
I know.
because I even want to play with it instead of just going through the this, because I've also found like some of this stuff ended up not being accurate even when I'm lining it up one by one. But I think that's the thing is like I just want to know where I'm at with this so that I can take it off, but I'm afraid to take it off.
Have you looked at your deed to see if there's that metadata update?
You know what? I tried, but that was like a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Um,
And can anyone in the audience who's watching confirm how many days the Legends of Mara has been open so far? Time has blended together completely in my mind, and I don't have a frame of reference. I want to say 6 days.
so yeah, I wanna put here real quick just what I have. So I have two farmers. Let's see. So I got one uncommon and I think this is I'm sorry, one common and one un no, this is rare. An uncommon or a common and a rare farmer. So common, rare. Get rid of these two. And then I have one hunter epic, I think, that I just threw in there. And then enchanter, I think I have a common, an uncommon, and a coda. Okay, so that would represent the 8 out of 11 production for this. Where is it? 8 out of 11 production for farming. And then the total DPS is 81, right? And so we have this, it says 82.
Okay, so it's close.
Yeah. And then it's saying for the tier 3, because it has a higher thing, that time to slay shatter is 24 days. And so that's kind of where I'm like, oh man, should I move that because I'm already like a few days in.
Yeah, I would, man. 24 days is like you would have to, that's a lot of harvesting time that you could
Okay.
have. So like,
So
okay, let's
let
do this real quick. Go to just one hunter on your one deed, and let's figure out how long that would take to defeat
oh, okay. So change this up, reset it.
yeah, reset it. Let's look at that one
Okay.
deed where you just have the common hunter, and let's get an idea of how long that takes to defeat a shattered.
So which deed would you
Uh
yes.
it doesn't matter. They have the same output.
Okay. So on a tier 1 or tier 2, because that'll make a
Let's
difference.
do the tier right here. This one, the tier 1, the Cosmic Dream with the 2-tier sediment. Let's just use this 90338. Let's build this into the model
This
and
one right
figure
here.
yes, and figure out how long that will take to defeat the Shattered
Okay.
at 40 DPS on a tier 1.
Okay. So tier 1, and right now I think it's just common with nothing. So 16 days.
And it's a sediment tier 2. Does that affect anything?
No.
Okay. So right now that's going to take you 16 days. The way you have it, it's going to take you 24 days.
Yeah. If I do epic, I think I have epic. That'll be 10 days.
Yeah, that's still faster than how you have it set up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll probably get a better loot, even though it's a lower tier.
And you're going to farm more of your biogenic swamp at the fastest rate possible with your
Let's
setup
see.
there.
Yeah. If I, so yeah, you're right. This hunter is going to take way too long for this.
Yeah. Yeah. The risk
Even though
reward
it's
isn't there.
So let's take this out, and let's take out my last hunter with infinite expanse.
And hopefully it's been there long enough where you got something out of that infinite expanse, you know?
Yeah, I've harvested a lot. Yeah, I mean, not a lot, but I've harvested enough. The thing is, like, infinite expanse is not going to run out as quick as. So we're looking at current rates. Infinite expanse will all be farmed in 363 days. Now, granted, that number is going to go lower as more people farm and hatch,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But this right here, dude, let me refresh. Let's see. 27.65 days left for farming biogenic swamp. Now, granted, the fragments can go back into the global supply, but we would have to wait until people start converting their Mara into Kodamara or any other particular utility for the sediment fragments.
Yeah, I wanted to say something real quick. I noticed on your page you have like over 100 biogenic swamps fragments. I have 56. And that's because I've gone back and forth, changing my mind every other day, essentially, right? And right here, I'm doing the minimal farming of 14 biofragments a day. This hunt thing, this is where I'm really just like, I hope the hunt rewards are worth the risk of not getting as much biogenic swamp fragments as I could, because the way you have it has kind of made me realize like I could change a lot to get to something like this on your build. Because that ratio you have now is looking quite nice. What did it change now that you've added that third farmer?
Now that I've added that third farmer, I have 9 out of 11 hours, which would equal 0.81 fragments an hour. And if I do that times 24, look at 19 to 20. If I round up, 20 fragments a day.
Yeah, so in a week you're looking at what, 140. That's pretty good, dude.
So if I think of it as 20 fragments a day and then do 8 out of 11 compared to 18, so I get extra 2 fragments a day.
So here's a great question. It's not better to have the coda up top, they ask. And let's walk through your reasoning as to why you have your coda there versus up top farming with them.
Let's see. So let's just take away this common right here. If I do, so I'm at 8 out of 11, or better yet, how many a day? That's 17.45 a day, right? And from what I'm learning, it's actually rounding up. So not down, which I thought it would. But so let's 17.45 a day. If I put the quota up here and turn that into farming, that's 10 of 16. So 10 fragments every 16 hours. That's 15 fragments a day.
So that way you're getting about 5 less a day.
3 less a day just by moving this. So 3 less fragments a day if I just put it as an enchanter and have it buff my farmers.
Yeah, and the quotas they do have a powerful enchanting ratio. So that also helps a lot.
Yeah, and Dirk, so that's kind of why I had that hunter there, because I was like, look, I got a tier 3 hunter. I can get 10 fragment or more than 10 fragments a day. I think I was at like 14 or something like that for just putting that one hunter, one farmer on a sediment tier 3 deed. But like you said, yeah, I have one biogenic swamp deed. So if I want to like really focus on just the bio swamp, then I think, and which is my strategy right now, I think this is probably the best move. So I appreciate, Jason, your feedback and everyone that's kind of tapping in right now, because I'm just going through that calculation of like how long it would have taken me to defeat the Shattered. I don't think it was clear that it was going to take 24 days.
No, and we have no idea how long the hunt's taking right now, and that's what's irritating for me with the quotas is like I could be in a cooldown period right now where I should be farming, but I have no idea. And so I think this is great to kind of hold up 2 seconds and then I'll let you jump in. I think what's really good about this is that you have the one biogenic, I had 2, and we talked about the different strategies versus maxing it out versus splitting them up to farm, right? So I think in this video, we showed you kind of how both of those would work out. And I think this is a great build, personally. To get 20 a day from this would be great. But if you had, 6 different biogenic deeds, then you get to play around a little bit more. So that was just a quick thought I wanted to share.
Oh, great. Thank you. And you're right. Like when it comes to farming, just the base sediment tier, that counts. Like adding this might only give me a couple more deeds per day. Like if I had another biogenic swamp, it would actually make sense for me to just move one of these over to that second biogenic swamp, because I at least get an additional 5 fragments per day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that would be if it was a tier 1. If it's tier 2, 7, tier 3, 10.
Now let's jump back into your camp and let's extend this conversation a little bit further and
Real
kind
quick,
of ask.
What I wanted to say was doing some math with the enchanters, and if I had one more enchanter at just one higher tier rarity, I'm like there's a chart where you can actually see, based on the enchanting percentage, which is the speed, I believe at 57 or 58, I forget which one, but only going from a common to an uncommon would put me into that next tier where I would get additional fragment per day. So or additional rate. You know how sometimes if we move them, it doesn't really change the rate, right? But just one more rarity on just one more percentage on this, so a 15 to a 16% enchanting for farming would actually put me into that next level.
I believe this is the chart you're talking about, if anyone's looking at the screen. If not, this is a very similar chart.
I haven't seen that chart, but
this shows down the breakdown of a lot of the different points and such. So
yeah, that's cool. What I'm saying is there's an enchanter buff kind of chart where you can see like at what percentage will it actually contribute to like the higher production rate.
Got it.
So anyway, this is my layout now, so I feel better about it.
I mean, that's great. Now you're getting 20 a day. You have 112 up there, so that's a good yield. So now let's look at your camp in general. My question
And I
becomes,
still have one hunter that I got assigned now.
okay, all right. So my question becomes now, why would you decide to put all of these to work on the biogenic swamp versus taking one and putting it on this, tier 3 sediment and getting some of this infinite expanse, putting one of these farmers on a chemical goo and starting to get some of that, or you even, have a
Yeah.
tier 3 rainbow atmos, right? Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you split them up versus keeping them all together now?
It's a good question because, you know, the it's going to be worth, and that's what I wanted with my deeds is exposure to all of these. But the rate of which the biogenic swamp is being farmed right now by everyone, considering it's a global supply, that's why
Got it.
is like, you know what? I might have a little bit more time to get some infinite expanse, especially with a tier 3, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Rainbow Atmos, but the supply difference is vastly different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so just going into the fragment supply right here, these numbers,
Give it a
if you
refresh.
if you look at these numbers, this is on Otherside Wiki. Um, the biogenic swamp is just there's a supply cap that is just crazy. There's only 665,000 left. And so I think that is, look at the farmed per second. Like this rate compared to all these other ones, zero point 0.2 every second, 0.27 every second compared to 0.04, 0.14. Chemical goo would be the next one.
Right.
So I think that would be the next thing I start allocating farming into. But
Yeah.
dude, that's the
That's
thing is
great.
like, biogenic swamp, I got access to it, even though it's a tier 1, like I'm using this moment of time to try and maximize my productivity because it's just going to go down, as more and more people continue to farm and hatch vessels.
No, that's excellent. And thank you for sharing that because that's really important to know is like with what you have to play within that range. So now my question is similar to what you asked me early on is there anything that you want to consolidate? Maybe look at getting a different biogenic swamp sediment tier. Are you looking at anything else to make any plays, maybe to add more farmers, enchanters, hunters? And also, where are you going to place your hunter that you've just removed from your deed?
Yeah. My feeling is I'm not going to get rid of this deed right here. This deed right here has a really rare resource. It's my rarest resource, Glumia. And I'm gonna stick with it. So I feel good about this little hunter guy. But the fact that you get a master chest for defeating the shattered within the first 10 days of starting that, I feel like I already kind of kicked myself in the butt with this because I already started it and I won't even get it with 10 days on a common hunter. So if I switch it up now, I don't think it's going to do me any good.
Right,
So,
because you're competing against the legendaries and the epics that may have put out the same time as you, essentially.
well, I'm actually just competing against myself when it comes to the first 10 days to get a master chest because it doesn't matter as long as there's master chests still available.
Got it.
There's if you complete a shatter and defeat a shatter within the first 10 days of starting it, you'll get one of those master chests.
Got it. Got it. Got
So, while available, while supplies last.
it.
So my thinking is either throw my epic, since I haven't hunted on this yet and hunted on this one yet. I'm not even thinking about hunting on these because of the high tier environments.
Right.
I don't even have, like, I don't want to compete with the high tier environments when I have one or two hunters, three hunters to play with.
Right. Right.
Um, and I got my coda, which can hunt, but I'm using that to maximize the biogenic swamp farming. So I'm thinking I want to do some math and figure out like should I should I put a common and an epic on this environment tier 2, or should I just put this epic here? And so that's what I kind of want to figure out right now.
I mean, I think for me the play would be to put it on the single one, but
So
you had
10 days
mentioned
exactly.
10 days. You had made mention that you were considering moving that one. So do you think you'll be moving that one in the next 10 days? Because if not, then just put it on there.
Yeah. Nah, there's others that I can probably move. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So I might do that. Yeah, look, if I do the tier 2
Mhm.
with the epic and a common hunter, 15 days.
15 days.
So unless I get an enchanter to help speed that up, I have a better shot at defeating it with 10 days. So I'm going to do that here.
Yeah, yeah. I like that strategy. I think that was something, we had curiosities on at a certain point would be, is there an advantage for a tier 1 and a tier 2 deed, right? And there has to be, and this seems to be what it is that some will achieve the hunt quicker, because you just have that one to compete against, right? So
Yeah.
that's a great strategy, man.
Yeah, I like that move. Thank you for helping me walk through that. And I like Anthony's affirmation to hunt on that goo.
Yeah. So I've actually, and this is just an aside, I've had some friends recently reach out and say, "Hey, I'm ready to nest. I've got 2 deeds, 2 vessels. They're both enchanters." And that's great. I let them know that's great, but you can't actually farm or hunt with just the enchanter. The enchanter just does the enchanting. So the
Yeah.
feedback I gave to that friend was, you may want to either sell an enchanter and go buy a hunter or a farmer, or just buy a hunter and a farmer. Now you have 2 enchanters. So just looking forward to making some more explainer videos on just some of these basic points that may not seem so basic to others, right? And there's a lot of strategy, a lot of continuous exploration. These all of these strategies are going to change constantly, right? So breaking down Sean's camp has been a very informative discussion. I appreciate you breaking down my camp as well. I look forward to talking to more community members and breaking down their camps as well. So if you have a camp and you have some questions, maybe we can figure out a time and a place to do this again.
Yeah, I think just discussing it with you, discussing it with each other, the chat, getting the input from the chat,
Yeah.
having the questions being asked, it gets us to start to think about all of this stuff. And then now we're starting to get tools from the community, like the LOTM builder, like Otherside wikis, LOTM vessels and fragment tool where we can see like what is currently being farmed and the rate of which it is. Those are really insightful. I think as soon as the thing that was holding me back from and this is exactly it. So I can only imagine so many others that might be in the same position where like this was a great example of me being held back from my own strategy of productivity, just not knowing what hunting where I'm at in hunting the shattered. And
Right.
if it wasn't for, the community coming together to pick apart, like, here's how much HP a tier 3 shattered requires to defeat it. And it was going to take 24 days for me to put that epic in a tier 3 by itself, along with some enchanters. Like, man, that was going to take too long. So, now I'm in
There's
a position to where it's going to defeat it in 10 days. So
And
I
there's gonna be people who are in that situation, Sean, where they may have 1 tier 3 deed and they have 1 hunter, and that's okay. That's a journey, to start at, right? But
yeah,
having videos like this to kinda ideate, maybe you wanna make a move and get that tier deed to a tier 1 where you have a quicker thing, or maybe you wanna add more hunters, right? Or whatever it
I'm
is that.
answer. Or when the friends come into play and those
Right,
aid, those aid the hunters. But I think
right.
that might be season 2. no,
This
I
is
think
early.
so.
This is early, guys. We're still in beta, right? So
Yeah.
be patient. We're going to continue to do these videos in all sorts of different ways. We got Other Space PM tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Super late on the East Coast, so make sure you come through and hang out. It's
Yeah.
we usually have a little more fun on that video. Love the
It's-
interactive part, but we'll touch a few more parts of the community of what's going on in Web3. Looking forward to touching all the parts.
Yo, this has been an awesome sesh. I appreciate it and appreciate everyone pulling up. We'll continue to do this. And if you're interested in getting more involved in creating content with us, reach out. We'd love to have you on as guests. We can maybe strategize together. I do want to plug our Discord as usual, just because that has been the consistent place where we get into discussions, start sharing posts, alpha, all the things that we're finding on the internet to really help us develop our own strategies. So, thanks for sharing this video. Thanks for tapping in. We appreciate everyone here. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you at Other Space PM tomorrow night on our next live stream. Bye, everyone.